Maybe for those of you who don't know it, the Back to School With series is a series that we started, for which we each time invite someone that we think is doing something interesting at the moment, often like an ongoing research, and we ask that person to curate a series of 3 evenings for us, giving kind of a sneak preview and a view in the ongoing research. So it's not a finished story that will be presented here, but it's really like collectively trying to move that research a bit further, together with the speakers that are quite a few today again. Paulien will introduce them later. Yeah, this is the third one. Maybe also because I still see, I expected a lot of people that had been here during the first 2 evenings, but I also see a lot of new faces. So maybe just really briefly about the Independent School for the City. We always say we are a school for people who already went to school, so a school for professionals, mainly people that work on the city in some kind of way. From architects to sociologists, from artists to historians, and we try to bring them together through different activities that we organize. It's activities sometimes that are more like events, like this one, and sometimes they're more school things, so smaller or longer workshops in which we really dive together into a certain topic. And the program of the school is organized along 3 different lines, more or less. And I think they all kind of come back in this conversation as well. One is about migration and superdiversity, so it really has to do with the makeup of the city and the population. The other one has to do with the Anthropocene, so the impact that we have on the Earth's systems and climate change, depletion of raw materials, etc. And there is a topic that deals with the right to the city, so the affordability of the city, but also the amount of influence people have over their own living environment, basically. So that's just a bit of the framework that we have here in the school that we work on. Now that I have your attention, I also would like to make some promotion, because on Friday we're organizing a symposium. I don't know if you still have time in your agenda. But it's a symposium about cultural erasure as an act of war, where we look at Palestine and Ukraine, and we bring together different people that are either fighting the protection of cultural heritage or trying to map kind of what is being destroyed. So that's going to be, I think, a very valuable and interesting program. And on a more happy note, on the 11th of December, we're organizing the big brutal quiz together with Jorten Hollander, a filmmaker and architect. It's a 1.5 hour quiz about architecture and brutalist architecture and cinema and how it's being used there. So, well, please sign up or come to both of them. That being said, and the Stitch. Yeah, so on the 12th and the day after, 12th and 13th of December, we're organizing a craftivism workshop, which is a term that we use for a series of activities that are really about making something. And the one in December will be, it's called The Stitch. It will be organized together with McGovern magazine. And there we're gonna embroider or sew things, right? Yeah. So that's that's also going to be a fun activity for the dark winter months. Okay, let me now introduce Paulien to you. Back to business. No, Paulien is a cross-disciplinary architect based in Amsterdam, and her work focuses on architecture as a social and cultural practice. And we asked her to create this series because of her ongoing research on the other construction side, which is supported by the Creative Industry Fund here in the Netherlands, as part of the Open Call Space for Justice. Paulien, you will introduce the rest of the evening and the speakers to you, and I'll be back during the conversation in the end. So Paulien, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so hello everybody. Very welcome. Super happy to be here again for the third evening and pitifully the last one on the other building site. And thanks again, Mike and the Independent School for the City for collaborating and hosting these events, evenings, and inviting me. And thanks also to the Stimulating Funds for their support. So for the ones who were not there the first and second evening, I'm Paulien Bremmer. I'm an architect in Amsterdam working under the name Studio Paulien Bremmer. And except for building, I teach, I make and I research, and these evenings are part of the latter. So this is the third evening in the series, The Other Building Site, and it is a research I initiated in other ways of building as alternatives to the existing extractive masculine system driven by time and money that we encounter on mainstream building sites. And this research had been the basis for the three back-to-school evenings. So the first evening we had 6 weeks ago and explored the conventional building site and historic alternatives. And the second 2 weeks ago explored contemporary alternatives. And the third today we'll talk about more systemic alternatives. And I'll give you a short retrospective of the first and second evening, and after that an introduction of the speakers and a small mini item. So the first evening there was a reading of the conventional building site where time and money are driving forces, and under the guise of efficiency, the architect is increasingly kept away with a masculine culture, often lacking transparency, and in 2023, 12 deathly accidents, 50% of the construction workers disabled upon reaching retirement. The evening revolved around ideas of Sergio Ferro, presented by Mariana Maura. Ferro, a Brazilian and Marxist architect and historian, criticized his whole life the production of architecture. He shows how disconnected we as architects are from the construction site, and especially now that with the alarming societal issues around climate and other forms of injustice, the urgency for alternatives in building is growing. His essays resonate strongly. Another critical perspective on the system was shared by Katie Lloyd-Thomas, introducing us the written building site, the world of specifications. Katie showed what specifications really nowadays in our capitalist economy do. A teaser on alternatives was presented by Sitara Noorani, the historical women's building sites in the 80s in the Netherlands, where anti-hierarchic ways of collaboration and other material cultures were explored. The second part, 2 weeks ago, talked about alternatives up on the mainstream building sites, which are luckily there. Although every construction site is hybrid in genre, you can speak of these alternatives as the participative building site, the geo-based building site of reuse, DIY, the building site of crafts, and so on. César Pere from Superuse on site talked about his relation to their building sites, where reuse, DIY, and circularity are genre words. Working from his idealistic worldview, César showed how he collectively builds buildings, but also systems, always using what's already there. Ellipse Architecture explained their way of working from the perspective of geo-based building sites. Related to local Swiss knowledge on vernacular building, they founded, apart from their architectural office, their own geo-based building cooperation, Origo, functioning as a school also for artisan building. Jille Koop, from the side of the commissioner of Kantoor voor Afval, explained how they developed a new type of tendering. Instead of an overall design, they asked for the design of 15 components, anticipating upon the building site of reuse. Ninja Zuurheide explained her work as architect, construction worker and contractor on the building site, thus developing new products, for example, terrazzo from reused graveyard stones. And all these practices position themselves in relation to the production of architecture, to the making, with implications for the construction site itself, for roles, tasks, the process, for the culture, and more or less for the finished for the more or less finished results. Academic Paulien Bremmer demonstrated how concepts like transformation and maintenance contribute in understanding the built environment as a permanent construction site. Her presentation was an introduction to this third evening, tonight. The more systemic alternatives, less about building buildings, but more about building worlds. And worlds are never finished and don't start from scratch. All practices tonight work with these temporalities, with processes of transformation and maintenance, with the notion that the work is not, or perhaps better yet, never finished, a permanent building site. The program of tonight, all about transformation and all are collectives. After me, we'll talk Brussels collective, Espace I Go. They will talk about the rented house where they live among the things they have made and transformed in collectivity. I guess they are very much related to the 80s women's builders, with the themes like living is building and building is living, and I guess an anti-hierarchic way of working as well. I'm very happy that Simon Vellekoop, Line Murke, Jem Lebleu and Salome Sperling are here to talk about their lived praxis. Then, looking very much forward to Dido van Oosten and David van Berg, who will talk about their 8-member collective Capitalism. An inspiring post-capitalist experiment for just agriculture, which works. And I think, in a way, they relate beautifully to Sergio Ferro's example of the landless workers, which Sergio Ferro talked about in an interview the first evening. After a short break, Laetitia Delaunay of Le Bateau will speculate on Future's Day practice and imagine with the floating worlds they build. Aurelia Nudelman cannot be here, but luckily Laetitia will talk about their activistic and dreamy world they practice and they evoke. Oscar Wellward will talk about their collective project, House of Annetta in London, the former house of cybernetica, architect and beekeeper Annetta Pedretti. As a cyberneticist, Annetta studied self-regulating systems and how they respond to their environment through feedback. Annetta saw her home as a permanent building site. And I'm really looking forward to Aska's story, in which she'll share how her collective interacts and transforms itself and the house based on Annetta's built and lived archive. I think the project relates strongly to the earlier lecture on transformation and maintenance and care of Paulien Bremmer 2 weeks ago. After Aska's presentation, we have a collective wrap-up in which we can pose questions to all and command, if we want, to the series as a whole. But sadly enough, the series has an end with this third evening. But the project doesn't end here for me. I will collect and expand stories from these evenings and curate them into a zine. In this way, I want to bundle the research and address the question, how do we want to build, and not only from the literal point of view of the making, but also more systemic, from a political and cultural and social perspective. But before we start with Espace I Go, a small mini item. Many themes run through these various evenings, like belief in the alternative, alternative aesthetics, alternative construction, building systems, building knowledge, building culture, processes, materials, women's builders. And several times the building site of the cathedral passed by. And I wondered why. In the search for alternatives to the mainstream building site, a common thread on these cathedrals building sites is that the value of time and money wasn't the driving force. But they were cited for other reasons. Sergio Ferro referred to the building site of cathedrals as not exploitative. Cathedrals were built in collectives by craftsmen who got the knowledge and tools to erect the building. No separation of design, and execution, and no drawings. Paulien Bremmer mentioned the endless construction time, which often means there is no single authorship, or the authorship is just unknown. In a slightly further study, I saw even more analogies, especially to the program of tonight. I was reminded of the Cologne Cathedral. Its construction took over 600 years. Work began in 1248 and was halted in the 15th century and completed in 1880. And here you see, at its heart, the medieval, partially wooden construction crane. What maintained unfinished, what maintained the unfinished image for centuries. The cathedral is built from locally quarried 300,000 tons natural sandstone. At the foot of the dome, you'll find the Dombauhütte, the permanent cathedral construction shed. The maintenance workshop was started in 1880. It's somewhat similar to the workshop of the Bosgaard of Superuse, Cesare showed 2 weeks ago. Apart from the maintenance, the Dombauhütte functions as a school for crafts, for blacksmithing and stone masonry. 100 people work here daily on repair and maintenance of the dome. Tools are handheld. Recently supplemented by drones for aerial inspection and QR codes for traceability of the repaired parts. Maintenance is continuous, and as Paulien Bremmer formulated it, the building is constantly being rebuilt. And literally, the cathedral is permanently under scaffolding. Here also visible in the bottom right. The cathedral is blackened by patina caused by air pollution and the billions of microbes, mosses and algae that live on the building. For preservation, parts of the facade are cleaned by the Kercher company, who supplied tools to sandblast the stone very carefully and with minimal force. Because done too hard, the sandstone becomes more porous and the living microbes return even stronger. Moreover, the characteristic black substrate is now part of the protected cityscape. Just like maintaining a garden that grows and blooms, the facade of Cologne Cathedral sometimes needs to be pruned back. In contrast with the Eco-Cathedral in Mildam, where Louis Leroy were growing and blooming of Louis Leroy, where growing and blooming is on the contrary encouraged. The porous, jointless structure provides a substrate for plant roots. The Eco-Cathedral is a permanent construction site organized as a foundation called Stichting Tijd. The building site will be cancelled in the year 3000. Until that endless time, the site will continuously be maintained and transformed by growing plants and building men. Analog to Annetta Pendretti's cybernetic systems, Leroy spoke about systems in nature, built ecological systems, changeable and constantly being ordered in time. He talked about his time-based architecture. Leroy thought that 1% of public space should consist of eco-cathedrals, maintained by volunteers. Ellie is one of the workers in Heerenveen. She doesn't know whether to call what she does gardening or building. It is kind of fluid for her. Every Wednesday, in a 3-person collective, without a plan and minimal tools, she rolls, pulls, and shifts the locally donated reused tiles and concrete leftovers to its temporary destination and listens to her body in what she can do. The permanent changeable eco-cathedral was declared a national monument last summer. Not a cathedral, but a place of worship is the Mosque of Djenné in Mali. Started in the 13th century, it was rebuilt in the 19th century, completely out of the local material adobe. The construction process involves secret powers of the masons, as lizards have. Seeing a lizard fall means a future fall of the future fall from the building site yourself. And climbing here is essential because the building is designed with a permanent scaffolding. After the rainy season, the adobe structure must be repaired, and in a ritual lasting several weeks, residents of Djenné gather to collectively harvest mud, climb the mosque walls, and repair them by hand. The ritual concludes with a grand and spectacular dance festival. In the 1990s, the mosque was restored for 3 years with the money of the Aga Khan Foundation. Layers of mud accumulated over centuries were stripped, and the yearly ritual could not take place. And now the mosque seems thinner. Critical inhabitants say the restoration was done the European way instead of the African. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We also always come in 2 or more. We're from Stichting Capitalism, so we're not very urban, not very urban people, or we are, but we don't focus on urban things, but we are farmers. You can turn next. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. First, I will talk a bit about the Dutch context of agricultural land, like the countryside. What does it look like, and what does it mean? Then I'm going to talk about the alternative, which is Stichting Capitalism, for example. Then we're going to talk about the first project where we are farming. It's called De Egel, de Tuinen van de Egel, the Gardens of the Hedgehog. Then the concept of work and the future. So the Dutch context where we have to deal with these days, it's very, there's a lot of monocultures going on, highly efficient monocultures. This is a picture of Flevoland. It looks kind of pretty. And when I was a child, I also always looked at these landscapes in the Netherlands as sort of romantic and pretty. But now I grow a bit older and studied a bit and know a bit more. I see industry, I see death, thank you, David, violence. Like the only one that is allowed to live in these fields is the crop that the farmers want to grow. So everyone else, the worms and the insects or whoever, die. Which is quite a heavy reality, I would say. Next to that, or maybe because of that, we have the highest land prices here in the Netherlands, in the world. So if you want to become a farmer in this country, you need to have a lot of money. And there is a bank giving this money to farmers or giving a loan, the Rabobank. But they ask you to use artificial fertilizer, to use pesticides. That's on like the one side. Or the other side are the supermarkets. And they ask you to give your potatoes for like almost nothing. So farmers are sort of crushed in between these two powers, I would say, and the big lobby around it. And this big lobby or the agribusiness is enriching itself on the back of the farmers, I would say. So that's a bit like a fun Dutch reality. And we were growing up in this reality. We were not liking it so much. So here, for example, we were blocking a artificial fertilizer factory in Germany. Oh, this is the board of the foundation. But so that's like one part, but it's not. We also wanted to do something like sort of to create the alternative, and that's why we started Stichting Capitalism. Oh no, not yet. So we went to farming school together, and one day there was this assignment, and the teacher asked us to design our perfect farm or like ideal farm. And money wouldn't be an issue, which is quite an interesting question. Like, money wouldn't be an issue. That made, like, okay, so then we could think beyond, like, capitalist reality, which is not so easy. And what kind of world would we build if the logic of capital didn't exist? That was quite interesting, and we came up with this. Yesterday I was drawing. So it's like a big forest, and in the middle there's a little garden with some fruit trees around. And we were like together in this class, and our classmates made like nice meadows with cows and a garden and fruit trees, but still all production, which is logical in this reality. And this was very unrealistic. Like, you felt it with the others also, like, haha. Like a big forest, you cannot earn any money with that. And we started, we wondered how we could get this, like, how we could make this happen. How could we get rid of this logic of capital and actually do what we would like to do? And then we started to think, and slowly Stichting Capitalism came to, that's what we thought of. You can do the next. Yeah. Wow. Well, it said here very. Stichting Capitalism is a post-capitalist experiment with the goal of removing monoculture agricultural land from the market, dispossessing it and making it available to those for whom the market will not make room, small-scale farmers and non-human life. So it is actually an experiment against this monoculture that we saw in the beginning. And there is, like, there are like two things that we're thinking of. We want to live together with non-humans, like this forest around this little garden, and the idea of property. We wanted to demolish that. Like, there should be land that is owned by no one or by everyone, and that makes a big difference. And there was a very nice example. There are quite some small-scale farms in the Netherlands, about 300, or in France way more, where farmers on a small piece of land sell their vegetables directly to the community. So these supermarkets are not there, and it's only on a small piece of land, so you also don't need the bank. So we thought, okay, but that's nice, but in the landscape, we should take more space. So we made like a rule for the foundation. This green part is like 10% of the land could be a garden, like a CSA, community-supported agricultural garden. And the farmer could make a living of that, like not so much money, but a little bit. Then we thought, okay, let's make it 10 times bigger. Ta-da-da. And on 50% of the land is for non-humans, the blue part. So that's like a part of the land where we don't come, or just like there's no production. And then 40% of the land, it's a shared space between the farmers and the non-humans. So it's like, in our case, a food forest, for example. Oh, I'm so sorry. And then there's this thing of property. It's not so easy in this world where property is quite holy. Let's go here. And everything in this land belongs to someone. How could we create a legal structure to go around it? And we actually stole this from the Miethausen Syndicaat. It's like a housing project in Germany. And I'm gonna explain it a bit. So we started the stichting. And with the stichting, we tried to collect a lot of interest-free loans. So people would maybe have like €1,000 or maybe 5,000 or 100,000 on their banks. They would loan it to us, but they don't get an interest for that. So then the stichting has a lot of money with which we can buy land. And then when the actual owner of the land is an association, and there's an interest-free mortgage between the foundation and the association. It's a bit technical, all this, but. And then there's like the peasants, or like a little farmer company. They also have their entity, like a corporation or whatever. And they get the right of use for the land for zero. Like they can use the land for nothing, like the worms and the butterflies they live together with. And that's possible because the mortgage is also interest-free. Yeah. And then actually on this capitalism land, the question who owns the land is not so important anymore, but it gets replaced by who has access to what and under what conditions. And now I give the space to David.
Thank you, Dido. Okay, let me see. So we set up this foundation, we set up the association, we looked for some farmers, or first we were the only two farmers, and we went to look for land. This is monoculture, and this is the piece of land that, we looked for money first. We found almost €500,000 from people that were crazy enough to lend it to us, 40 people. And we found this piece of land that actually didn't look like this when we bought it, but it was owned for 20 years by an old farmer that turned it into kind of an industrial small fruit production sites for cherries and berries and stuff. It was all covered in plastic. There were how many strawberry plants? 40,000 strawberry plants, all on picking height, which all had their own drip with the necessary water and food. Here there's cherries under plastic, of course, heated by gas heaters in the early spring, such that the fruits, such that there's many fruits. And then we came, and now it looks like this from the top. So in the middle you see our little garden, and then around it you cannot really see it so well, but there's a lot of fruit trees now that are still very tiny, some a bit bigger. And then around that there's the 50% where not much happens. It's like on the left side and the right side. Yeah, these are some close-ups. So in the garden we make food for a little over 100 people. we bring them a vegetable box every week that looks like this. And I'm gonna talk a bit, I think, about how we do this and how we live here, if there's time for that. So these vegetable boxes, that's a fun thing actually, because we are not of the capitalist kind. So we wanted to make them affordable for everyone, of course, but still they had to pay us because we have to pay the rent. So we figured out this system where we calculated how many hours of work we put into each package, and then we told the people, just multiply that number by your own hourly wage and then give that money to us. So in the end, a poor student pays 250 euros or so for a whole year, and a rich expat pays for the exact same thing 2,600. So there's like a factor 10, which we thought is really funny. Yeah, so we sell a lot of these. So we started with 2, but then somehow it ended up like this, with loads of people. And we're very happy, as you can see. Yeah, this is like another close-up. It also shows this, because we're talking about living, of course, and architecture and stuff. On the left top, you see like a kind of card, and it said that we don't have a picture from the inside. It's not as nice as iGo, but it's really cute on the inside. Actually, we all live in the city, so we live in Amsterdam. This is like a 1-hour drive. And classically, we would go there on Monday morning, and then we would work the farm, and then sleep in that blue thing, all like stacked on top of each other. Not really on top, but in like bunk bed constructions that are very nice. And then we would live there kind of very close to each other for 3 days, and then work would be over, and on Wednesday we would leave again with a van full of vegetables and go back to our city dwellings to have our personal lives. Yeah, and now I'm gonna talk about work, because that's also a very important part of a project where you work that considers itself post-capitalist. How, like 2 minutes, 1 minute? 2 minutes. Okay. Well, then I'll only talk about work. So there is a famous philosopher that said that a good way to suppress people is to suppress workers is to divide their week solely into consumption and production. So you work for 5 days or 4 days nowadays, and then you're free, but then you have to either relax, or you have to go kite surfing, or you have to check your Instagram and stuff. But there's also this other mode of being in between work and leisure that we would like to cherish, and that is important to like question those in power. So we actually, this is my only work slide, right? Yeah. We recently went from a 3-day work week to a 2-day work week. So we like to shorten that as much as possible, such that we have time to do other stuff too. So that's kind of the future. So we're setting up a little factory and a distribution center that kind of rethinks the supermarket a bit. And what else? We make a little newspaper, and we do all this other stuff collectively that we can do because we don't own, but we have these production means of production. and yeah, that's it, I guess.
Ma- Maybe I had one technical question. It was more about the graph that you showed about the Miethausen-Syndicaat, or like the reference to it. You were saying you're not paying interest, but you are paying the rent back to, or the loan back to people, right, or not? Yeah.
Very important thing that I forgot. Yeah, so people lend us their money, and if they want it back, so they at least lend it to us for 3 years, or 2 years actually, and after that they can say, I want it back. And then we have 1 year in which we can find someone else to sort of replace the money. So also this money is a little bit from no one. Or it's like, yeah.
So if you have money, it goes in steps of €1,000, please lend it to us.
Okay, no, that's very clear. Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks a lot. We're now having a really short break. We're running a bit later in time, but I think it's still nice to take a short break, get a drink at the bar, or go to the toilet. They're upstairs here, or downstairs actually, and then be back in 5-7 minutes, something like that.
Okay, so we continue with another world. Le Bateau. Laetitia will tell about a beautiful project, Le Bateau. And I think
thank you. So I'm Laetitia. I'm part of the duo Le Bateau. Aurelia cannot be here today, so I'm going to talk for the both of us. We are Le Bateau, and together we want to rethink the boat imaginaries, the maritime environment that is usually not really welcoming for queer or women, and we want to have our space on the water. So what we do is that we work around building hybrid boats that can welcome different types of initiative. But how does it work is that we are not really interested into building traditional boats, because first of all it's extremely expensive and we don't have this money. And so what we do is that we start from a very easy way of thinking. Something have to float. And so it all started that like we wanted to do a wooden boat because it's quite cool, but then we saw that it was way too expensive, so we started looking videos on YouTube how people like they build their boats with plastic bottles, and we're like, yeah, that's super cool. But then in the Netherlands they keep the plastic bottles for money, so we would never get those plastic bottles. But then you realize that like beer barrels that are used in a brewery, plastic beer barrels, they go to trash because they're supposed to go to recycle cycle, but most of the time it's really badly done and nobody does it. It just goes to trash. So we call brewery and we ask if we can just get their trash, and they are very happy usually to give it to us. And so we design our boats around this object, the beer barrel. And here is the design we made for our last boat, Beluga, that we built a year and a half ago, something like this. So on a very simple way of thinking, it's like plates of wood that we cut, we adapt, and then we attach them with rope, and then it's easy to understand what the structure is, and therefore we build them in participatory work sites, so then everyone is welcome to learn how to use the machines and how to build something and how to be part of this boat construction world, because we don't really believe in the idea of the artists alone in the studio that have like the crazy idea. It's not really our way of working. We are more like community based and thinking together to find solution because also we have no background into boat at all, or into architecture, or into I don't know, like smart people doing things. We are just artists, smart still, but like we have no background into this world. So how to make it happen? How to create a community, to make people feel welcome, is first of all to say that they are welcome. So we create events also around the participatory worksite of the boat building themselves, by inviting other artists to share their craft, and to oh yeah, so that's the worksite. When we were building. So you see, like, very easy, we attach beer barrels with rope, with holes, and everything is kind of obvious and easy to understand. And so yeah, so we create events. So for example, here you realize that if you want to build a community, food is extremely important, because food gather people. So we do this, and we have like a boat clits ceramic workshop, for example, mosaic workshops, and things that people can, are not afraid of building, basically, because it can be spooky for some people. So yeah, and then we repicture design of boats. We make it our own. We are like, oh, what could be a fun way to have a ladder? And then we make our own ladder. And the nice thing is that being not knowing anything about boats make you experiment a lot of how a boat should be done. And so when we started, what we did is that we just were walking on the harbor and like, oh, that works like this, and that works like that, probably. And then we're like, oh, but I know that the grandparents of that person is a sailor. Maybe we should give a call and ask for some questions. And it was, everything went through mouth to another. And so we built 2 boats. So this one is Beluga. That's the second one. And so when I said also that, we organize gatherings, like for here, for example, we invited the Queer Choir of Amsterdam to sing like marine theme songs for an event that we did. And also we asked another artist to design a sail for, that was Busy 100, the first boat. And yeah, here was the first swim ceremony of Beluga. So every time it's like a commune effort to do things. So for both of the boats, we had a lot of people willing to lift, because it's extremely heavy, and to walk and keep on being powerful together and taking the space of the water together, basically. So yeah, that was Busy 100. And we don't stop here, because it's too fun to not stop. So not only like giving workshops and inviting people to give their own craft, and also offering the space for people to use the boats. So people are also very welcome to do any initiative. If you want to do something on the boat, please let us know. You're always welcome for this. But the fun thing is also to travel. And so we became like this itinerant artist aboard our boat. So that was last spring. We went from Amsterdam, and you see Reims. Then the waterways closed, and we had to take another direction, because the French waters just closed, because it was too dry thanks to the climate change. So we went to Paris instead, because we were in need of accomplishing something, because we put our life on stop and just travel for 4 months on Beluga. So here, a dinner for Beluga's birthday. And so yeah, here for the table is where we sleep. There is also a mattress that goes on top of it, and then this thing on top is the tent that we put down, and we have everything in boxes, and it's another lifestyle, but it's extremely nice to discover the landscape through the water, and to give also representation of another types of people, because if you travel on the rivers, you're gonna realize that it's not really welcoming for 2 young girls, for example, because there is none. It's a thing of rich people. It's a rich sport to be on boats, and I didn't saw a lot of women captains either during all this time. So yeah, and the nice thing is like that we are traveling with like an itinerant artwork, so it's fun because of course like we bring conversation with our boat, and we manage also to bring art through landscape where art is not really a possibility, because it's a lot of countryside, museums are not around, and it's also a nice thing to, as you guys said, like out of the white cube. That's also what we would like to, is not to be in the white cube necessarily, so it's accessible for more people, and people to have tours, which what we did when the water closed. We were giving tours to people. We also went to cultural places to give workshops, to paint on sail or make little flags, and reinterpreting the codes of navigation, basically. So tours we did also, and this one was the first Busy 100, and our navigation live. This is still also from a documentary that hopefully will go out one day. And I like this picture because I feel very proud that we made it to Paris. It was not easy, believe me. But and also we have to. The funny thing is that we started like with doing it completely from imagination, and then you really have to confront yourself with the actual rules on the water. So from like, oh, let's build the boat, we had to pass our boat driving license, we had to make the boat register, we had to find an engine for the boat, and really confront to administrative papers as well, and to reality of the rules. And the traffic in Paris, they don't follow the rules on the water, by the way. It's like on the road. And basically like give representation to another way of thinking and another way of being on the water, and it's nice then to have like such a picture, for example, because it shows that it is possible to do it, but like good luck, because it takes all your life. But then nice thing happened. For example, we had the chance to put the boat at the Stedelijk Museum, and this again, it was thanks to our community, because since we were and we are still a very young artist, they didn't want to let us the big door. So how to put a 7-meter boat inside by the entrance of the small door? We had to call a lot of people to come at 4 a.m. To leave the boat, put it on the truck, and then cycle to the Stedelijk Museum to put out the boat, and then flip it like this to pass it through the door and put it down. These 2 times, because you had to go in and out, of course, but we were too young, poor artists to receive any help from the Stedelijk Museum. So thank you to our community for waking up at 4 a.m. on a Monday. Yeah, a nice picture to show you. If you have questions also on how we live on this, there is a solar panel. The table is also our storage. Engine is there, and here there is not the mattress and the tent, but that's basically our life. So it's kind of luxury camping, but on the water.
Maybe can I ask one question? Because you were saying like the design process is also like the building process is collectively with a lot of other people. But then in the design process, like especially the frames, you design them up front, and then how do you make them? Like, is it wood or like, and then
everything is wood, and the design we do it the two of us, because at one point we were asking the question: should we ask people to participate into the design itself? But it's going to be big chaos, and at one point some stuff has to be taken decision. Already two, sometimes you're like, oh, you agree with this? Oh, I don't know, it's made everything by hand with the jigsaw and the router, because we don't have enough money for CNC also. So it's everything by hand. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would suggest we just directly go to House of Annette. I'll put your presentation here and give the microphone to you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. So, first, contextualizing this building site and its alternatives in the city. Oh, I think it's on auto. Could we just turn it to manual? Amazing, thank you. Contextualizing in the city, London, and in time. I'm talking about one very particular building site, building 25 Princelet Street in London, England. The project is today called House of Annette, but has had other existences in time. So, built 1705 as a Huguenot merchant's house in Spitalfields. The Huguenots were French Protestants, silk weavers, escaping religious persecution and bringing the word refugee into the English language. They could settle in Spitalfields as migrants and as non-citizens in this early suburb of London. So you can see the pink area, that's the kind of city of London, and refugees, migrants, sex workers, people engaged in illicit trades could find their home on the outer fringes of London and pass in through the gates on a daily basis. And this kind of eastern suburb, over the centuries has developed. 200 years later or so, following industrialization, colonization, and urbanization, London grows. In Charles Booth's poverty map, the area is described as an urban slum for poor Jewish migrants in the rag trade. Over the centuries, Spitalfields has been a home for Jewish, Irish, and Bangladeshi migrants, and now is part of the inner city. You can see Princelet Street, so the dot, and it's coloured in this plan as black, so colour-coded by Booth as the lowest class, vicious or semi-criminal. Following World War II and an optimistic programme of urban redevelopment across London, in the 70s, the streets of Spitalfields were scheduled for demolition. So that's something about a commentary on the kind of the type of thinking or the ideology that structured urban renewal, but also a commentary on, this is a really working class neighbourhood, and the dilapidation of the buildings was paired with a kind of process of moving people, of social cleansing. Many buildings and whole streets in the neighbourhood were protected through squatting. These squatters were middle class, some of them architects who valued the heritage of the buildings. They formed the Spitalfields Trust, finding future owner of the buildings who could take on the work of repair. So contemporary, from the Save Brick Lane campaign, amazing community campaign in our neighbourhood. The kind of encroaching city in yellow, major redevelopment sites that have been completed in the past 5 to 10 years in red, and then the contested site today in the Hatch, and then House of Annetta just outside the boundary. Today, the City of London is the financial centre of the country. Its offices and associated services encroach again outside the urban boundaries, and contemporary challenges are mobilised around the Truman Brewery site. So I'll show you a very plain front elevation, and I'll come later to kind of critique, or using Anetta's words, critique the order of representations and its relationship to the building site and architectural production. Annetta Pedretti was an ideal candidate to take on refurbishment of this building. Having studied at the AA, the Architectural Association, she was introduced to the building by her friend Dan Cruikshanks, one of the squatters and now kind of esteemed architectural historian. She bought the building in 1979. So the only technical drawings we have of the building produced by Annetta were made just before she moved in to seek permission for structural repairs. We can see that the proposal was to reinstate the historic timber panelling of the walls, to create a toilet on every floor, and works listed A to K describe creating supporting walls under beams, replacing decayed timbers and cracked bricks, as well as annotations showing works approved by the district surveyor. A new plumbing drawing was submitted. Annetta did complete the basement drains at the bottom and installed new downpipes from the gutters on the roof, but none of the bathrooms and sinks. However, in the process of building, of moving in, of living and building over the next 4 decades, a very different process emerged. So Annetta began a process of unfinishing the building and building in time. That's how she described it. Through stripping back the layers of the building, Annetta found traces of the building's lives as a grand home for the sort of Huguenot silk merchant, but subdivided into bedsits, extended, demolished, informal adaptation, a fire. So as you come in, there's this charred screen and marks all over the fireplace, staircase, and many repairs, marks of repair. So, as well as studying architecture at the AA, Annetta was a cybernetician, completing a PhD thesis on the cybernetics of language at Brunel University in 1981. So around the time that she was, finishing her PhD, she moved into this house in Spitalfields. Cybernetics is the study of systems with feedback loops, relationships that respond to and alter systems beyond them. And I think this photo of Annetta's roof repair speaks to some of these systemic relationships. The photo shows the new office blocks of the central financial district creeping on the horizon, as well as down the street, with a cart of materials Annetta is pushing to the front door. Annetta repaired the building with many found and salvaged materials from local demolition sites. This cybernetic approach, stretching from the city down to the materials, was woven not only through construction, but also activism and campaigning, writing, art making, and beekeeping. So, diverting from what Annetta later came to call building in the order of representations, that is, the predetermined approach of plan drawings, Annetta developed a practice of building in time through living in the building as a building site. This was a reflexive, cybernetic process of embodied knowledge, of learning craft skills, in dialogue with writing, in dialogue with passing builders, with video, with friends. These are some stills from a durational video, a performance piece that Annetta made titled Pointing, so the act of repairing the mortar. Annetta contrasted her building in time, contrasted it from the time of wage labour and the drawings that went with wage labour to describe, cost and calculate work abstracted from the embodied knowledge of builders and their tools. She described the fact that she was working with an old building, working for herself. This allowed time to operate radically differently than construction work, that there was an other orientation in this project, other than profit, to work in time. She was in conversation with tradespeople and city officials, witnessing the new buildings in the financial district and Docklands regeneration sites. So this image is from a video that she made of writing about building. And I'm going to read some quotes from this unpublished manuscript. One of the first examples of working out of time or working in time that I made explicit was when the district surveyor wanted me to make a hole in the wall to hold up the wall while rebuilding the wall underneath. And the bricklayer, I asked, had a simple way of rebuilding the wall, bit by bit, without every need to make the hole to support it. The district surveyor, as an engineer, was in the order of representations and out of time. He saw or calculated loads above the damage area and had to hold those up before he could do anything at all. The bricklayer instead was used to working in time and could see what he could do first. Annetta then describes the builder working in time, figuring out a series of tasks, sequentially ensuring that the load is safely carried, and the engineer out of time, only thinking of fixed states, less situational, less embodied, less material knowledge, and that working in time is less destructive and cheaper with more agency to the individual worker. So working in time could be very slow indeed. It unfolded at its own pace as materials and techniques were acquired from the surrounding environment. Another quote. And the project I'd started, first to house a conference, then to restore a building, became a project to restore a way of making things work, a project to restore a way of still being able to see things that was in the process of being wiped out. And that took away the pressure to finish the building, and instead gave me all the time in the world to learn, to remember the time in which we can make things work, things that work, the time in which things could again work, the time in which I work, we work, the time outside the order of representations. So sometimes Annetta did work with others, although she, in one of her books, describes herself as a loner. Here are some stills from a video artwork featuring Annetta along with an unknown woman and 2 children. They explore the sequences of building together, of figuring things out, creating temporary supports, sweeping up. This building approach of working in time created new experimental structure in the garden. We're still learning about how it was made. Living on the building site was an in-between space for embodied knowledge. Annetta lived up on the top floor, keeping a ladder permanently without fixing the stairs, marking the transition to a not domestic, not finished, not property space. This transition away from the ordinary was of course exceptional, and Annetta writes about the kind of privileged nature of this relationship to time and to building and to space, also made possible, aside from property ownership, as a result of the low building price and a functioning welfare state. Here's Annetta living on the building site, about to roll a cigarette. We know that her attention shifted largely to bees around the year 2000, including inventing new hive structures. When she died in 2018, she left behind an unfinished project full of traces of life, hordes of materials, and many tools. So, her family gave the building and its contents to the Swiss organisation Stiftung Edith Marion. Here you see the floor in which Annetta lived and its contents packed into boxes. Stiftung Edith Marion, they're a non-profit organisation with a mission of decommodifying land and property, a network of over 150 low-cost housing blocks, cultural centres, and some farms as well. And we've been funded by their contributions over the past 5 years. The Stiftung approached architectural practice Assemble, based in London. Assemble commissioned basic structural and electrical safety measures, rewiring acroprops. Part of Anetta's building in time was a sort of daisy chain of extension cables across the building. So yeah, we had to take those down. They seeded the project as a home for spatial justice and founded an independent organisation, House of Anetta Community Interest Company, with local and national housing and land justice campaigners at its centre. Over the past 5 years, we're learning about Anetta, using the building, reflecting on the process, carrying out interim repairs, using the building, learning from it in a cybernetic loop. This is seasonal in time, open to test things out each year, April to December, closed for hibernation over winter when it gets too cold. It's full of holes, not insulated. So that's time for funding applications, reflection, planning, and time to do some more disruptive repairs as well, without people being inside. A key thing to this project, and I guess marking the shift between Anetta's house and House of Anetta, is opening the doors and windows to people. Over 5,000 people per year come to House of Anetta, despite it being a semi-derelict building. It's a very precious space for meeting, organising and experimenting. And the relationships are shaping the building, and the building is shaping relationships. The house is an archive of many traces, both of former lives and Anetta's practice. We're not creating a fixed moment in the past or a ghost of the 18th century, but a living building that speaks to the many layers of time. Repair works are visible, showing different materials and techniques. We're building relationships and the organisational cultures through using the space for its future repair, so repairing its future. We've been developing a culture of maintenance and caretaking distributed across the many people who use the building. Every couple of months, we have a house care day, which is also an opportunity to bring many people together, reflect on how the building is used, and make plans for the future. We've been testing out different ways to distribute and document the labour. We've established a new subsidiary company to build community infrastructure, so it's called Living Constructions. And this winter, we're building a new gay bar. Here are some images from our co-design day, bringing people together who work and perform in gay bars, as well as carpenters and fabricators, metal workers, plumbers. Having a special construction company, so not just thinking about the kind of physical infrastructure, but also the legal or, in this case, insurance infrastructure, means that, we can do different things. When we make repairs, we embed learning and training into the project, working with women and LGBTQ+ tradespeople. This process has been a prototype of the major repair works to come, and we're looking at different models, including apprenticeships, MVQs, or sort of accreditation, short courses, open days. We're building infrastructure for different kinds of use in the building, bit by bit. Emma Leslie, carpenter, built this kitchen. Each foot, you can see one just poking out in the corner, is adjustable for the slopey floor. Anetta had cut the wood for the handles already. Like the kitchen's cabinets and sinks makes possible the cooking, other repairs have supported other uses, garden planters or structural props, created spaces for sitting, performance and resting. We're practicing the project as a repair process. Here are carpenters Ash and James, trainee Sophia, talking with engineer Sinead about mending the joists. This can be a back and forth conversation. We have to navigate between building and time, sort of drawing on Anetta's lineage, but also the order of representation as we're a public building trying to access public funding in the world today. Anetta had cut back the joists probably in the late 90s after a blocked gutter. And you can see some marks. Some of the timbers have had multiple lives before, being in this building. So, carpentry annotations made through axing. So this floor repair made possible the community press. So like Annetta was writing with building, we print monthly bulletins and circulate and reflect. It's also a good opportunity to reflect on site culture and to convene conversations around mainstream construction. We're currently fundraising for building work to make House of Annetta warmer and wheelchair accessible. We will run prototype syllabuses in 2026, 2027, testing out fragments of window repair and brickwork, and if we get funding, move into a more intensive building phase in 2028. So through a process of building in time, we don't know what 2030 will look like yet, but this is the current representation of what we're imagining. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Let's see, how are we going to do this? Because there's a lot of people, but there's room for some questions to everyone. Well, maybe just all the speakers come forward. And we just gather around here. And I don't know, are there some questions? Comments? It's a lot of information. Yeah, of course.
I had a question for any of you, all of you. Is it just me, or I can also see something you could say post-apocalyptic in this. You know, it's like there was an interview today with a Dutch guy of the military who's studying what can we do as a society once there is a 72-hour stop in all electricity, you know, there won't be anything. So that would mean in our current technological phase, there wouldn't even be water coming out of the taps because everything is electrical. So is there something of this, or is that something that you, not maybe literally thinking about war or apocalypse, but there is something of all these projects that you could imagine that you guys would do a lot better when everything stops than us normies. Is that how do you think about it?
Who wants to say something about this? Maybe you.
Well, we had the working name for our garden, which was Matsutake, which is a mushroom that is flourishing on capitalist ruins. So that's sort of, monoculture is quite apocalyptic, I would say.
Yeah, maybe also the question is what you consider the apocalypse, because probably next to this house there's all these yuppies living in these renovated houses. That for me would be the apocalypse, and then this is the post-apocalyptic building in the middle.
You don't need to answer all of you. Maybe let's just go to another question or comment. Yeah. You were first.
Thank you. Hi. I also don't think I have necessarily a question for one group, but I think the common denominator for all these stories is kind of a very interesting new way of living, community, creating new things together. And in many stories, you guys already talk about how you can create community, make the impact bigger. How do you guys see this moving into, maybe in an idealistic world, this community moving into something bigger, maybe more citywide, or, I mean, let's go big nationwide or whatever.
yes, my turn, sure. Well, I can say one thing, but I don't know how much it will fit. But it's funny because I got this exact question asked not so long time ago when we were doing our talk also. And then it was by this guy who was basically he's an architect, but he did a lot of the windows for Vivienne Westwood in London. And he's like, I like your work so much, but like, how do you see this developing into something that everyone can make use of? And I find it an extremely difficult question, because I think for me it's also like part of what I think we're trying to oppose is also this really big kind of structures that everything is so monoculturalized almost, and it goes completely through one thing. So like, I really enjoy the idea of having these bubbles around, and I think that's also very powerful to have. So I would like to see that develop rather than one singular idea that just, you know, overspans everything and works that way, because then I think it's a hit and a miss, you know, personally.
I think it's very clear answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very convincing. There was one other question here, and then I come to you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed all the presentations. I think I have two questions. One speaks to sort of the core of the series, which is the other building site. So I was wondering what you, doesn't matter who answers this question, but what you consider your building site. That's one question, and another one is related to history and memory of your practices, because Aska is invoking the memory and legacy of Annetta Pedretti, and I was wondering if the others are also thinking of other past examples, other than ideological examples like the Communist Manifesto, or New Babylon, perhaps. Yeah, I was wondering what other references you have.
Okay, I will answer the first question because that's what I could take in. And what comes to my mind is, so we, Emanuele Coccia, contemporary philosopher, wrote a piece about our work. So thank him, because we are maybe practical philosophers, but not theoretical ones. So I will just use his words. And in that sense, I think what we do is, well, what he said that we are doing is using the ruins of the planet, you know, like there is so much already there. There's no point of really inventing something completely new or extracting things to make something new, but because there's so much there to just be placed in another arrangement to fit another purpose that is for us, as we said in our talk, at first for ourselves and our community, and this is what we want other people to do for themselves and their community, and this can then eventually also intermingle and create even a new thing, you know, like when two people meet, there's like 1 + 1 is 3. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe about because your question was also like a historical inspiration, right? Or like on what shoulders do you build upon? Or do you stand on? I don't know. Is this something?
Yeah, I guess beyond Annetta Pedretti, we're really drawing on the legacies of anti-racist, anti-fascist and worker organising in our neighbourhood, and kind of tracing the urban struggles that aren't just kind of, they're literally on the street. So I think, that's been really key to learning about the project.
Me, it's more for the first question. Like, what is a work site for us? Is a work site that people feel welcome, that they feel no pressure into like what they have to accomplish. That there is no comparison of who can do what, and especially like that everyone can feel the energy and the force, the physical force per se, to use things they would be afraid to use usually. Yeah, and hopefully one day they will design things for women for as tools.
Thank you.
Yeah, how I really liked the presentation, so thank you very much. I was wondering how you manage success, because success is also dangerous, I think, because you all do very focused, small-scale projects. But what if success takes over and it needs to be scaled up? And so I was wondering how, I think for you, you were also big in the media, a lot of magazines. So how do you deal with that kind of, I think, also pressure almost?
Thank you.
I don't know if it's pressure.
Yeah, that's exactly. Exactly, I think like there's two things, because one is indeed pressure, and the other one is then that success part. I think that the success, it feels maybe like successful, but most of the time it doesn't. It's not like there's something in the paper and we have money coming in. It's really not like this. So it's like nice, and it's also always this like idea of like, oh, you get exposure, so that's good. But you cannot eat exposure, right? So then, this part is that, I think, and then it's really about, okay, how do you harvest this success, and how do you then turn it into making sure that you can do what you want without being too attached to all those things that you previously did. So I think that is like. Jamie agrees, I think. But I think it is a learning curve for sure. But it's also what I was trying to say in the end of the presentation. For our new project, we want to start in privacy again, because it's extremely important for us to make inside of this bubble where you can fall on your face and it's not like, documented. I mean, even that is maybe fun for people, but just for us to just be able to continue, it's important.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I think with coverage in media, a lot of things that happen to us is computer, and it's terrible. Like, we're so frustrated because we've been spending the last 5 months on computer and not really making stuff. And that's what Simon was saying. Like, for the first 1.5, 2 years of the next project, we're gonna be hermits because we need this. And that's what the beginning of the house was, to have the work. That's the core of our practice, to have the workshop next to the house, which cannot happen everywhere, and that's not what we have at the moment. But when we had it for the first 2 years or 1.5, it was the most, like, that's where all of the crazy fucking cool things happened, So I think it's just, I guess with growing as a practice, you have things that you don't want to do that you need to do. So either you get a project manager, which maybe we will get soon, or you just learn how to deal with it yourself, but then you need to make planning. And yeah, I liked what you said about the winter months, that you do like application for funding and everything. I think we also need to get this kind of structure, because you need to be able to fully work for whatever months and then do computer. Yeah.
Nice. How is that for Le Bateau?
For Le Bateau is another kind of success. It's more that, like, at least there is a lack of intimacy. Is that since the boats are like artworks, and it's also our home. Yeah, we have this issue that, like, people think that they can enter the space, like, without asking, or with making a lot of comment while we are sleeping, or like or journalists that that come at 7 a.m. To take photos while we are in pyjama, like these kind of things. So, how we do, but I think what you guys said, like winter months, I go to the sun usually, and computers is really an issue as well. We spend so much more time now on computers than on building things. It's really a catastrophe, or it's depressing, at least for me. Yeah,
It's quite. That's quite apocalyptic. So.
Yeah, we were hoping for it soon, basically.
Hey, maybe time for one or two more questions. You can also ask questions to each other. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a question to all, in a way, but I think maybe it's most present in IGO, because I think all of your projects have this thing that they're always in process in a way, right? And I mean, we just talked a little bit about success in the sense of getting into a magazine or press, etc. But do you, from yourself, care about documenting this process, or is it really about just this ever-changing thing? I'm wondering.
Okay, maybe can I start with something? With Le Bateau, we are actually not only building boats, we are working on archiving as well. So we make books and movies also about all of this, to keep record, and also to be able to share it to more people. That also, again, nothing is hidden in the process, is that we explain step by step what is actually happening.
So for us, it's been, I mean, when we started the project, we were very much immersed in only about the making. So we didn't really have the second to think about documenting and archiving the work. Luckily, we had like already, really in the beginning, it attracted people to the project. So we have already two sort of people following us and documenting what we've been doing, which is great, because we're also like our practice for ourselves, like the joy of it is more in the making than in the final outcome. Of course, in our sense, we also enjoy the outcome because we live there. But then for us is more, maybe it's not archiving per se, but like for us, the moment when we want to start to tinker and like do things with the space is when it's done. So the whole process before that, we don't think about it, but luckily we have other people that does it for us. And that's what we hope with the next project, is to, once it's, well, we will have people documenting it, but once it's done, we also want to activate the space and to have other people come in and activate the space in different ways. And this we then have time to document as a sort of continuation of the research that we are doing.
How is capitalism doing that?
We write these emails every week, which are very like, we're always a bit tired, but we are planning actually to maybe make a newspaper to distribute to the people that eat from the land.
But are you also sharing knowledge about, like, for example,
maybe, but that's like sort of a future dream.
Yeah.
I think for next season, that would be a way that we are all not so, like everyone here, not so much on a computer. So if it's something, then it's on paper, I guess. Do you have any thoughts?
I think we tried to like get it rolling, the archiving once in a while, some pictures maybe, or maybe like it never worked, or maybe like the place really changes because nature just does whatever it likes. So we thought we have to document this, maybe get someone who knows things about bugs and collect them. But it never really worked
we were
out.
just busy farming there.
Yeah, it's quite different that we don't have to write funding applications or so. We just and we have a lot of fun in farming, like, or just hanging around basically with the shovel. So then, too little, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe next week.
I would actually suggest that we keep the rest of the conversation for when we have a beer at the bar.
And this is a question
yeah?
for them.
Okay, yeah,
Is that
sure.
allowed?
No, of course.
Because
Yeah, dat gaat zo.
yes, hi. I really like you guys' project. I think it's really fun, and I think the part that's is very intriguing to me also is indeed this kind of like physical part that you kind of did slowly, and I was kind of wondering because you have this whole setup in which you have loan money, and then it's this like almost like the Great Depression, no, like the 2010 depression kind of vibe where it's just a bubble, right? I think this is really funny. So I think that was very interesting. I'm just wondering, can you give me tips on how to get this rolling?
Do you have one? I have one. So the thing we do for getting money is also trying to be quite radical in it or so. So we don't really make concessions. So we just say people loan us money, but they get nothing for it. Rich people already get too much. Or so we say like, okay, in capitalist society, of course, you have to loan money and then you have to pay it back, right? Like in your household booklet. But actually, like Shell never does this. They just loan money and then they say, oh, we're going to refinance, buy some stock options, that. And then they all of a sudden have a lot of money. So we explicitly say we're not going to try to pay this back in some kind of way that we sell a cabbage and then we get money and then we pay it back. But we say, no, you know, when you need the money, we'll try to look for someone else. We'll refinance, like Shell, like Unilever, like all the bad guys.
I like it. Very smart.
You have to be smart. I mean, exactly. The other party is very smart, and there are, there are many.
Okay. Did you want to add something, or?
No, I think
yeah. I agree. Well, thank you so much. I want to give the floor to Paulien for the last words, but a warm applause for all of you. Paulien.
No, I just also wanted to thank you very much for all your talks. It was very super nice and inspiring to hear. So all the speakers this evening, thanks a lot. Also the former speakers, of course, who are not so many are there. And also thanks a lot for the school, for the city, for the generous conditions of having those 3 evenings here. So I think it will support a lot the research also. Thanks a lot.
And please stay around. The bar is open.